Hey everyone, it's the Grumpy Meeple, and I am back with another crowdfunding preview. This time we're going to be looking at Wild Assent, Lavon Rising from Lazy Squire Games. So, Wild Assent is a 1 to 4 player RPG board game with solo cooperative. Okay, good. Back. Done. That's me. Just kidding. And PvP game modes, beautiful miniatures, and thrilling gameplay. The Lavon Rising expansion adds more heroes and creatures and a compelling story-based campaign with multiple endings that you won't need to rearrange your life to finish. So this is one of the kind of selling points of the campaign for Lavon Rising is that it's not on the campaign is not on the scale of like Madara or something where you're going to spend, months, years with a dedicated group to get through that game. The idea here is that you can kind of get through a campaign with a lot of branching stories and multiple endings and stuff in a much shorter period of time. So, this is another game from Lazy Squire. These are the same guys who did Storm Thunder, which is another game that I'm super interested in and plan on late pledging. It's doing really well. This just launched, I want to say yesterday, maybe the day before. It's already got $500,000, almost 2,000 backers. They're unlocking all sorts of stretch goals. They have daily unlocks. So very interesting project here. So right off the bat, we can see you get a pledge before noon Eastern Standard Time on July 2nd to get this, what looks to be pretty giant miniature for free as an early bird. They also had a freebie if you followed the campaign and on Gamefound, and so, you're getting quite a bit of stuff just kind of for either pledging early or kind of paying attention early. So, cool deal. This is a reprint campaign. So Wild Assent hit Kickstarter a couple years ago and is either delivering now or delivered relatively recently. And, everything that I've seen and heard about it has been pretty much uber positive. People seem to love this game, and so they're doing the reprint and kind of changing things up a little bit. They're redoing all the miniatures because they were previously unicast resin miniatures, I think from Archon Studios, and now they're making them more in the style of the Storm Thunder, like PVC, and they're scaling them up because they were smaller and such. So they're making some at least aesthetic changes from the original game, and this is also allowing you to get your hands on it, because it didn't come to retail. So got a bunch of testimonials. Fascinating. Testimonials. Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Go. Love this guy, and he loves this game, so that definitely, factored into it. I've just seen a lot of coverage from him on it, and it does look very cool. It reminds me a lot of Arena the Contest, which is a very good thing, because Arena the Contest is a really good game. But it's got the similar kind of like a board instead of tiles. You've got the cooperative solo and PvP gameplay element that Arena has. You get a bunch of miniatures. It's a miniature heavy kind of strategic, like dice chucking style game where your positioning is really important and stuff. And I can't wait for Arena the Contest. I've said before, I literally backed every single thing for that game. I spent like $700 on that pledge. And so this seems like it's scratching a similar itch, and I'm all about it, basically. I'm not going to spend too much time. I know these videos are probably always too long, so I'm going to really try to cut down on it here. And they talk about why you should join now. You can read through that yourself. Let's talk about the pledges. So you've got the Lavon Rising. I think it's Lavon. That's how I've heard it pronounced on other bigger, more successful YouTube channels who got an early copy and such. But I'm pretty sure it's Lavon. You've got the Lavon Rising Pledge, $369, which comes with the Wild Assent core game, the Shadow of the Silverstrum expansion, Dangers of the Wild, which I believe is a new box that they're including with Shadows of the Silverstrum, and then the Lavon Rising expansion and all the stretch goals. So it's important to note, and it's a little confusing unless you click into here. So it's 6 boxes. This is the entirety, basically, of the pledge from the original Kickstarter and the pledge from the Lavon Rising expansion. So you can see here, you're actually getting 2 separate boxes of stretch goals, because the stretch goals for Wave 1 were all already unlocked in the previous expansion or the previous campaign, and now they're unlocking stretch goals for Wave 2. So you might look at the price and say, wow, that is a hell of a price tag, but it's basically 2 Kickstarters. And if anything, it's probably, and one of them is Gamefound, not Kickstarter, but it's probably actually going to end up being cheaper than it would have been to back these individually, just because of the shipping. I imagine will be cheaper since they can send it all. You're not paying twice for it, basically. So I think this is a pretty good deal. This is what a lot of people seem to be going for. You can just pledge for the Wild Assent core pledge, which is also a great deal. This is only like a $20 markup from the original Kickstarter, and it's an improved version of the game with bigger miniatures, and you would assume that they may be doing some, kind of cleanup on errors, and you're also not taking a risk. You're not taking the risk that the people who backed this originally were, because it did take a long time for this to deliver, and people were getting salty about it. And this company kind of came out of nowhere with Wild Assent, and so there was no guarantee that the game was going to be good. At this point, I'm fairly confident that the game is going to be awesome, and so $20 to avoid that risk and get a better version of the game, not a bad markup in my book, especially it's a couple years later. Or you can get the Shadow of the Silverstrum pledge, which includes basically 4 boxes. So the Wild Assent core game, the stretch goals, the Silverstrum expansion, and then Dangers of the Wild, which is a new box that is including more monsters, which lets you play the game in this kind of nightmare mode, or adds to the nightmare, I guess you could say. So here we've got to look at some of the stretch goals, and you can see like they're unlocking all sorts of great stuff here. Big, awesome looking miniatures. Again, these are Wave 2 stretch goals. I don't believe they're unlocking Wave 1 stretch goals, because Wave 1 is done. But I've seen so many unboxings and reviews of the miniatures that these guys have for Storm Thunder or for Wild Assent, and they seem to be universally awesome. So these are really awesome, like next level, probably a step up from even like a CMON type, your standard CMON game anyways. And they're just really pumping out the stuff that they're giving you here. I mean, this is awesome. You got a unicorn, you got what looks like maybe some heroes or baddies, tons of new cards and such, game trays, which is awesome. This was one thing that people did complain about in the original game, was that the organization was a little bit of a beast. And if you're paying attention to the channel, you'll know that there is no game that comes with suitable organization for all this crap. It's just not possible. But the game trays will help a lot, and I will utilize them. I'll have my own custom organization, and then on top of that, I will use the game trays for what makes sense. And so keep an eye on the channel. I put out a funny, what I thought was a funny trailer for my ultimate board game organization guide, and I'll be posting. The original video was an hour and a half long, so I just didn't think anybody would actually watch it. So I'm going to post it in chunks, and I'll be posting the first chunk as soon as it's done processing 4K on YouTube. So, but they're unlocking tons of awesome stuff. And again, they have daily unlocks and stretch goal unlocks, which I love. This is a great idea. I don't know why everybody isn't doing this now. This should be the standard, because it gives you a reason to come back. beyond, it being kind of contingent on, is the game popular? Like, either way, no matter how much money it makes, you have a reason to come back to see these daily unlocks. They get a bunch of add-ons, art books, comic books, and then the War Writer. This was the freebie if you followed the campaign prior to the launch of it. So, getting into the content summary, I'm not going to linger on this too much. I'm just going to say, it's your standard, incredible, packed to the gills, solo co-op, PvP, tactical role-playing board game, basically. So it's going to have just an absolute crap ton of miniatures, punch board, cards, game boards, dice, etc., etc., etc. I really don't think you have to worry about necessarily getting your money's worth on this, because it's just packed to the gills with stuff. You can see here in this pledge, the Silver Strim pledge, you get 115 miniatures. So that is a considerable pile of stuff. And then here you've got the big boy pledge, the Lavon Rising pledge, which in this image they show 7 boxes, but in the other one that I saw they only showed 6, so I'm not sure what the 7th box is. Maybe they're giving away a little secret here that they didn't mean to. But yeah, and they even say 7 boxes right here. There's an asterisk, but I'm not going to go all the way to the bottom of the page to see what it says. Anyways, damn near 200 miniatures. Some of them are pretty big. This dragon is pretty big. This mammoth looks pretty big too. I've seen this on Alex Radcliffe's Board Game Co. channel. Lots of game boards, custom dice, tokens, campaign books. The Lavon Rising, what it particularly adds is the campaign element, the story-based branching narrative campaign element. And so when I was originally looking at this, I was thinking, well, I could just get the core pledge because I don't need everything, and I probably won't end up playing everything. But the thing that interests me the most is the branching campaign element. And so between that and the fact that it has its own set of stretch goals, because it would have been really easy for them to just say, here are the stretch goals from the first campaign included, or something like that. Or kind of just to cheap out on the stretch goals for this one and put them all in one box and, try to kind of double dip. And it seems like they're not doing that. It seems like they're doing the right thing, the smart thing, and putting a ton of crap into this stretch goal box for Lavon Rising. And between those two things, I'm pretty much sold on this pledge. So Lavon Rising is going to add a 100-page decision-based narrative campaign book with multiple different adventures that give you the feeling of a large-scale narrative campaign without needing years to complete it. So very cool, very cool. There's always a niche for something a little bit different, in this space. And between stuff like Madara and Storm Thunder, which is the other game that these guys put out, both those games have like 400 plus page long storybooks, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong, I am insanely excited about that. But time marches on, and there is only X number of hours you can spend doing this stuff. And so just to have something that you could play with a different group or, more casually by yourself and not have to, read through 8 pages of text to get to the next mission is a nice option. And then here they just, again, go into more detail on the contents. I'll let you all peruse this on your own. I will say that there are kind of 2 different types of heroes in this game. There are Seekers and then there are Ascents. So Seekers are your PvE heroes that are going out and going on hunts. So the game that this reminds me the most of is actually, it's kind of like Kingdom Death Monster in that sense, where you're like capturing heroes, taking parts of heroes, or capturing monsters or taking their body parts to craft stuff, and slowly building out like a town, etc. And so it has a definite element of KDM to it, I think. So the Seekers are the PvE heroes who are going out and going on those hunts, and the Ascents are the PvP heroes who are in the arena leading a group of monsters, basically. So you're Ascent and a group of monsters that you draft versus your enemies. So, and I don't know if these are cross-compatible. It looks like Core Out at least is both, but maybe not because they have this weird. I don't know. It's a little confusing. I think maybe all heroes are both, or some of them are both. You're getting a ton of stuff, and so just piles and piles of awesome looking miniatures and all sorts of spiders and crazy looking griffins and phoenixes and all sorts of stuff, and it just goes on and on and on. And then here's all your other components. This is just basically the core box and the stretch goals. Then the Silver Strem expansion just layers onto that more Seekers, more Ascents, more bad guys to fight, and then scenery too, which is another reason I figure I'll go for the larger pledge, because I do love this scenery stuff, and so I'll be happy to get that. Going on and on, you can see like some of these are huge, more scenery even. And then Lavon Rising, which is 150 by itself, which is another thing to kind of factor into the price there, is giving you another 77 miniatures and 2 XL miniatures, and then all the punch boards and such. And this is adding that narrative campaign element with the branching paths. More Seekers, more Ascents. I mean, you got enough Wild Assent stuff here to last you a long, long time. Another gigantic dragon, sculpted bases, the miniatures. These guys are not messing around from everything I've seen. Very, very cool looking sculpts with a lot of really cool detail. And then they go into the gameplay overview, talking about the difference between hunts, the PvP or PvE cooperative campaign mode, the arena, which is the PvP game mode, and then the story-driven campaign, which comes in Lavon Rising. You can click here to read a demo of the campaign book, and then you've just got tutorials and testimonials coming out the wazoo because people love this game. So, and then you've got some scale comparisons. So this is that free miniature for the first 72 hours. You can see it's 120 millimeter miniature, so it's big. Here they show you some production samples from Storm Thunder. Again, just like dripping with all sorts of awesome detail. Like, look at those wings. That is just insane. And then they talk about shipping here. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this because it's all in flux, and that's like a really kind of chaotic space right now. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, I'm very excited. I think what I'll do is I'll do another video at the end of the campaign to catch people up on, or near the end of the campaign to catch you all up on where they're at with funding and such. But I imagine this is going to do quite well. There's already a ton of stuff unlocked. There's already a bunch of updates. These guys they seem really kind of dialed in on exactly what the community and what their players want. And they care a lot about, pleasing people who backed the original game. There's a reduced cost for the upgraded version of Wild Assent, the core box, if you back the original, so you can get those new miniatures and stuff. So seems like a great company and a great game. Very exciting. If you've ever wanted to scratch that KDM itch without, kind of having materials in your house that might traumatize your children, seems like it would do it. So that's all I had for now. Thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you later.